U.S. policy, funding ISIS today, fighting them tomorrow. All right, well, welcome back. We're gonna actually be covering a couple news stories, so I'm pretty excited. We actually had Syria fall over the weekend, so that's kind of crazy. I actually was kind of looking over the block or the region, and it kind of seems like some things are moving in good pace for America and Israel interests. If you're Iran, you're pretty pissed, but. Then we also have some news out of the Daily Wire with Brett Cooper leaving. We're also going to cover a Venezuelan actually gets caught in Trump's backyard trying to kill him. Pretty wild. I don't know how these people are getting so close. Just beyond me. A judge actually rejects the Onion's bid to buy Alex Jones' InfoWars, which that is a pretty interesting ruling out of the justice there. And also Elon Musk's net worth hits over $400 billion. Over $400 billion. And Trump also continues to look at tariffs, increasing it on not only China, but also possibly making Trudeau a governor. But that just kind of sums it up. But I want to start off there in Syria, where things have kind of been getting a little wild. And Cody, you've actually been looking at it a little bit too, but it really appears as if the main concept of this is to stop Iranian weapon systems and weapons in general moving across from Iran to Palestine, to Hezbollah, primarily Hezbollah in Lebanon. And if you actually look at the map, you can see that it's the intersector. The only thing is that they could get it across Iraq and these other countries, but the U.S. now kind of controls it. They control the airspace, they control the shipments, and so it really is becoming a big problem for Iran. Now, there's kind of two separate thoughts here. The one thought is that, well, Iran is going to get kind of backed into a corner. Another kind of train of thought is that it may actually temper down a lot of tempers in the Middle East, because if you're able to kind of neutralize Hezbollah, you're able to neutralize Hamas, you are going to see a much safer part of the region. That's kind of more the Israeli view of it, and a lot of Americans' view, and it does make sense. However, what does that look for America's interests? Because shockingly, this is what this podcast is about. Not like any of our politicians would ever take that position. But what does that mean for American influence over the region and our actual national security and trade routes, etc.? So it really only spells issues for the American policy. And the reason for that is that we are actually funding currently two separate factions in Syria who are fighting each other. So that's cool. We also are funding these different rebel and military groups, and the problem is a lot of their weapons are getting into ISIS hands, and ISIS is now becoming much more powerful in Syria, so ISIS will be a problem again. So ISIS essentially, I mean, I know it's a stretch to say that ISIS is getting funded by the U.S., but it is, right? Its weapons are getting circulated to them. It's a big issue. Obviously, the U.S. really wants to take Israel's priority in this conflict to where it's like, hey, if we can neutralize them, we can protect Israel. The problem is that ISIS is a lot more, and we know this, global, right? They're a lot more about acts of terror rather than like positioning themselves. Like Syria, for instance, or Hezbollah or Hamas. Hamas has one objective in its mind, is to reclaim the area that Israel's taken, right? It's the old concept of colonization, right? And I understand both sides of that. I totally do. I understand that the Israelis are like, hey, we're coming to take it. We're coming to take our land back. And, you know, the Palestinians are a lot more in a position like, hey, I've been here a couple hundred years. I don't really know what to tell you. Like, I'm not leaving. So I don't really think it's necessarily, it's the same thing as, think about from the Palestinians' perspective. It's the same exact thing as an American citizen, you or me. We're sitting there, we're sitting in West Virginia, we're sitting there in Florida, we're sitting there in New York City, and the natives show up, the Cherokee Indians show up, and they say, hey, you got to go, right? Well, I was born here. My parents were born here. My grandparents were born here. Like, this is my home, right? So we may have been here for a couple hundred years, but we're now Americans. So I don't really, the whole point of, well, it's Israel, right? It was the Jews' original homeland. Well, they hadn't been there for a couple hundred years. So now you kind of see where it's the old concept of, yeah, if the natives showed up, we would knock them out, man. They would be extinct. It would be bad. Poor little natives, man. We would have a national holiday for it. It'd be so bad. In 100 years, our kids would cry on, like, the university kids would protest, and they'd be like, it'd be bad. It'd be called, like, Two Sticks Days or whatever they would come up with. That would be pretty crazy. I probably, we're going to get canceled. Who cares?
That's crazy, bro.
I had to go there. Hey, but here's the thing. Leftists, you can't get mad at me because I'm defending Palestine right now, so shut your mouth.
Solid point.
But the same thing is that Palestine is in that position, right, as we would be as Americans if the natives attacked us, right? So they see that as, hey, this is my home. This is where my great parents were born and their generations after them. And now you're telling them they got to get out, right? They're kicked out. I mean, they've moved so many out of the West Bank. They've moved thousands and thousands of families out of the West Bank and Palestine and out of the general area of Israel. So, the question is, do they have the right to defend themselves? It's very funny if you ask the typical conservative, they will say, like, if you ask them about the Irish, right, they'll be like, oh, yeah, the IRA and the Irish, they were badass, man. They were kicking out the English. It's like, well, you're now having that opinion on that side, but which, by the way, the Irish were some of the first to create acts of terrorism as means of what they call defense, right? So now you're claiming that the Palestinians are very, very similar, the same exact situation, except now it's not okay. So anyway, back to my main kind of overarching point, which is I understand both sides, and now we're kind of getting to the situation where a lot of Israelis are now born in Israel. So now you have two sides that have been born there. This is where problems become even worse because now neither side is going to leave, right? And they're going to fight for it because it's their homeland. It's both their homelands. And this is just going to be a mess. So either way, how it affects U.S. Positioning in the region, Israel really wanted to knock out Syria, like I said, so they could choke off Hamas. They could choke off the fortified region of Lebanon with Hezbollah. They needed to knock that out. So they have done that. And now Syria has fallen, and the U.S. is backing up multiple different factions, two different ones. One in the north is more Kurdish, and the other ones are more just rebel forces, which those are the ones that are kind of letting ISIS get a hold of a bunch of crap. Over the weekend, or the beginning of this week, Israel has now struck over 500 positions in Syria. They have also started to invade. They started taking what they call a buffer region, but they are moving closer and closer to Damascus, which is pretty wild. And the U.S. is kind of in a position where we have to fund now this entire war, or ISIS will become powerful. We oftentimes forget that what happens is in these power vacuums, think about it from their perspective. If you're just a country and outside forces are knocking down your government, you're going to become more extreme. You're not going to be like, oh yeah, and now we should have a more moderate person to lead us back from destruction. No, you're going to go the complete opposite. It's going to be Germany after World War I, right? It's exactly what happens. So we're going to see more extremist groups come up. Turkey is now starting to move troops in, or their factions in, and they're starting to kill, so many Christians. It's just become a total mess, and the U.S. will be stuck in yet another conflict for many years to come. And it's just, for me, I don't see the positive for it. I do not. I understand that it does protect Israel in this situation. But for me, I'm just more of like, hey, why are we funding two sides of the war that are fighting each other, that the weapons are getting to ISIS? And the only way that we keep ISIS from spreading terror around the globe now, because Assad, the former leader who just fell a couple days ago, was keeping ISIS in check. That was one thing he was really, really good with, was keeping the smaller, crazy groups at bay, because he's actually a part of a minority group there in Syria. I forget how to pronounce it. It starts with an A, but basically they're a very persecuted group. So for him, he's a lot more about like, hey, let's keep things like pretty orderly and let's not let things get out of hand. But either way, the U.S. and Israel overthrows him, very much to the chagrin of Russia and Iran. But yeah, I don't necessarily see. Cody, do you have any thoughts like about the Syrian conflict? Like, can you give me an argument that would say, hey, this is the benefit of America? This whole issue, this whole conflict. Is there an argument that you can think of off the top of your head?
I probably wouldn't be the one to ask for this, but I kind of had the thought it would, is it not really addressing your question, but per se, there is a vacuum of leadership there in Syria now. Who's going to fill that? And my question is kind of the IDF, or is the Israeli state going to kind of try to roll in and essentially almost claim the country as Israeli territory? Do you think that is in the realm of possibilities? Not that. Sorry, that doesn't answer your question.
But no, like is it possible that Israel really takes more than what they've done? Right, they've taken the buffer zone. Now will they go past that? I'm not sure. I could see Israel. Damascus isn't far away, which is the capital of Syria, and they're moving closer and closer and closer, and they're striking all around Damascus. Could Israel kind of hold Damascus kind of under control for a while? I could 100% see that. And mainly it would be U.S. support. Obviously, that would make that happen. So I could see an IDF and U.S. support that really controls Damascus and that whole area. It's just such a hairy situation because the problem is it's a powder cake. So now you have 5 different big militia groups that are well armed. Some are armed by Turkey. Some are armed by the Iranians. Some are armed by the U.S. Well, multiple are armed by the U.S. And then you have Israel adding in there, right? It's just a powder cake, man. By the way, I'm just cutting in here because I want to ask you guys, if you want any topic discussed, questions to ask, anything, you can go ahead and send it to the email below. I'm interested to hear if you guys have any thoughts or maybe suggestions or anything like that. I'd be curious to hear. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there and back to old Syria. All right. So yeah, it's not a great situation in Syria, but I just really hope that we can mitigate losses. We need to get the U.S. troops out of there so they're not just sitting ducks and targets because there's only 900 of them. They're not going to sway the conflict either way. And yeah, I hope we get out of there, but I don't think so. I think we have to fight them because ISIS is there. And if ISIS is there, well, we're going to hit with the juice. So we got to make sure to defend that.
Light them up.
Unfortunately. So anyway, we'll keep you guys updated though. I want to keep looking at this conflict more and more. The whole Middle East situation, it gets deeper and deeper. Like when you realize that, the U.S. is actually protecting poppy fields there and exporting heroin out of Afghanistan, right? When the U.S. came in and took over, heroin export went up by 80%. When we leave, the Taliban immediately take over. And what do? They burn all the poppy fields. All the heroin gets shut down. It goes down by 80%. So there's a lot of things that are very interesting, like why the U.S. military was particularly protecting those fields. So pretty wild stuff. But anyway, let's see. Do you have any other topics besides? We have some rough stuff today. I'm not going to lie. This is rough. We got South Korean ex-defense chief tries to kill himself as the authorities are trying to get to him because he's probably going to be put under investigation. He's the guy who actually, if you listen to our last podcast, was in with the president about declaring martial law. And so anyway, they're upset about it. I mean, rightfully so. They had no reason to call for martial law. So he's going to be in big trouble. But who knows? Man, we need to have a lighthearted moment in this podcast. Bring up a funny looking feller, maybe like Lori Lightfoot or something.
Oh, I'm glad you asked because I have.
Wow,
right
it's like
here.
It was pre-planned.
It's like we talked about this or something. It's script.
We may have had some technical difficulties, and I may have said some questionable things, but we're here. So, Lori Lightfoot, is she trans or does she just look like it?
Well, as a functioning, wow, that's a little loud, but as a functioning, maybe normal person of society.
Who, you?
I'm talking about myself.
Okay. I don't know about her, bro.
I am unsure what a woman is, so I can't tell you. Or
No
not
way. You
if
can't make
is
this
a
up.
woman. What?
Did you
What?
read that?
Where?
And the second openly lesbian woman to
Oh.
serve as mayor.
I just read that. We are on.
We were
Okay,
making fun.
Okay. Well,
You can't make it up. You can't make parody up. We were literally
Well.
just kind of like, man, she looks lesbian or she looks trans, as a joke. Turns out she is. Wow. That's
she
wild.
would definitely be what they call the butch of the
She
relationship.
would be the boss, bro. She's freaking selling
mean-
crack, just putting, I don't know
Yeah,
what
it's-
they do.
She's
but
a.
what do lesbians, if you're here,
She's an
let us
interesting
know
looking
what you
creature.
guys do. Would she be in charge?
We know we got some listening potentially. So
Yeah, oh, we probably do. Our LGBTQI plus, whatever letters added since last week.
can't forget the P.
The pedophiles?
Persons or minor attracted persons.
Dude,
Caleb.
that's wild.
We can't get canceled the first.
Are we
week.
really? Oh my gosh, I can't believe you
Maybe
hear.
we shouldn't open that can of worms this episode.
You heard
but
it first.
That is.
I
that is
can't say
wild.
what I want to happen, but as a nationalist, America should protect its children, and we should neutralize pedophiles. But it's what it is. It's what it is.
We just need to do what old Alabama's doing.
He
just
castrates them.
chemically castrating them.
I don't think that's far enough. I don't
Well-
think it's far enough. But hey, to be fair, what's funny? I was watching a Catholic guy talking about how he really doesn't believe in the death penalty, no matter what. Apparently, Catholics are like very pro-life, as in not only just in the womb, but like even a person who's a really bad guy or person. So it's just wild to me. I don't know. I'm definitely, God wants some of us back. That's what I heard a famous man once said. Bunch of stray pups on the earth. But no, I do think that there is an element of like, do you want this person in society or even in the prison system? So I don't know. It is what it is. Send them a pastor, and I hope they convert. But no, I actually wanted to also bring up that the judge rejected the InfoWars, a bunch of lawsuits. The Onion appeared to have bought it. That's what all the fake news was reporting. And then guess what? Turns out it was a big fishy scandal, and the judge actually declines it and says, what is it called? Voids the contract and says, hey, nope, sale's over. The Onion did not buy it. So it's pretty wild stuff, especially to see like an actual kind of fishy thing happen with Alex Jones. It's just funny because typically he's in the shadows, the frogs are gay, and all this kind of crazy stuff that he says. But, with this particular one, I would love to hear his conspiracy theories. He's actually live right now. He's always live. But
That guy is always live on
always
X.
live. Always live.
Always.
He's always got like 1 million viewers too. Live. No streamer pulls 2 million viewers concurrently at any time. There's no way.
It is very interesting. I mean, the whole sale, quote unquote, auction that supposedly the Onion won. I mean, it was absurd of how that took place. The federal government appointed a federal trustee to oversee the sale of the entity, InfoWars LLC. And anyway, the Onion was the representing party of the family members of the Sandy Hook the kids that
Families.
died, the
Yeah.
families.
Yeah.
And so basically these families were in partner with the Onion, and they were, quote unquote, bidding of the money that they will get in the future when they win, when Alex Jones pays out this however many billions of dollars, which the guy is not even close to, worth close to that.
They originally
He can
said
never
he had
pay
to
it.
pay $1 trillion.
It was over $1 trillion. It was the largest lawsuit in history.
So rigged.
It was like 1.3 trillion or something. Anyway, whether you think he's guilty or not, that's beside the point. It's just it's absurd.
It's a legal sham.
It is.
Either way.
It
Like,
really is.
even if he's wrong and yeah, he should pay money or whatever,
Yeah.
it's a legal sham.
Yeah. So they were essentially bidding with money that they potentially will get, or they will get something in the future. And that was the whole point of the bankruptcy court, is he was supposed to liquidate his assets in order to pay the lawsuit.
Which is just this
It's
goes
crazy anyway, because you're not supposed to be able to do that with an LLC.
with
You're
a
not,
business.
You're not liable with
You
an
cannot.
LLC.
You cannot do that. Like I am sorry. In America, if you have a business and you get sued personally, and yes, I know that they can claim that the business had all these things to do with it, you cannot force a business to liquidate its assets due to what we call it was some kind of damage. But the problem is that these businesses, especially these media companies, they have insurance, right?
Yeah.
So if that insurance doesn't cover it, it's total BS. It's a total sham to shut down InfoWars. They say some wild stuff on the program. He was feeding llamas the other day in the studio.
That was crazy.
You gotta pull up, Cody. Pull up pictures of Alex Jones
See if I can
feeding
find a picture here. But
llamas.
I did want to say one
in
other thing. It
studio.
was with the federal trustee, that seemed like a sham to kind of just shut him up, because they, typically how a normal auction will go is the highest bidder wins the auction.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Okay? That's just common sense. Well, the federal trustee stated that it was going to be a private auction. Nobody would know who was bidding, publicly anyway, and that the trustee could pick whatever bid they wanted.
Yep. So
And
basically,
they wouldn't even disclose how much that bid was.
they completely rig it, right? To
Yeah.
where they have 3 bids. I want the lowest bid because they're my buddies or they're the left.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous on every
ridiculous.
level.
Yep.
So I was glad that, again, I'm not saying that Alex Jones was in the right or the wrong, because he has said some questionable things, especially regarding
The Sandy Hook, yeah. But that's outside of the point, right?
That is outside the point, and just how the whole situation has been dealt with, particularly in terms of the bankruptcy court and the bankruptcy rulings. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
It's called legal assassination. That's all it is. To where you can sink a person because you do not like their views. And, unfortunately, it can happen here in the U.S. now. It is a form of establishment and extremely powerful people going, we don't like this person, so we're gonna hire a whole army of lawyers and we're gonna sink this guy. It's just crazy. There's Alex Jones.
This is
There
a
he
pretty low quality picture. Maybe
There he is.
for post production I'll try to find a better quality, but this is pretty.
Like, what is happening
On the InfoWars set,
in studio?
just brought these
We
llamas
need to get a llama. Come on, bro.
in, and they're just like eating food off the ground.
We have
Like
some
hay. He
also
literally
tried to
brought
feed
hay
him.
in too. Like, and he just
Well,
walks around with a mic.
PETA
and
would
starts,
probably sue him. They'd be like, he was starving these llamas, and he's like, we have to have proof on the camera. That's funny.
It's pretty crazy.
I love it, man. Oh, we need some llamas. If we weren't such a low budget production, we would have llamas.
Well, we did have pets for the company, but
They died. They,
passed
were
away.
fish. They got wrecked. I'm not gonna lie.
we have one fish left out of 3.
One. I think the one fish was killing the other fish at night. He's making them at night. Uncle Danny, shout out. All right, so
What's our next segment?
let's
Caleb?
go. Yeah, let's go. I'm Brett Cooper. So Brett Cooper actually leaves the Daily Wire. I'm not sure how many of you guys are familiar with Brett Cooper. She was a host of a TV show or podcast, if you will. I call them TV shows, and the reason for that is because now it's a YouTube show. It's all it is. Anyway, that's another topic. But anyway, Brett Cooper leads, which is interesting because we've seen a lot of people exit the Daily Wire, including Candace Owens. Wow, does she hate them now? But Brett Cooper doesn't appear to hate them. Jeremy Boring, I actually like the guy. He seems kind of cool. The only thing is that I really think that he doesn't stand up for Christian values enough. That's my own personal pick with him. We could fight that over later. So I would call him he doesn't really stand up for Christianity. That's my problem with him. I hope he does more. I hope he stands up stronger. I doubt it'd happen. But either way, Brett Cooper leads the Daily Wire. The main reason for this, and this is what's very odd, is we see that the free thinkers and the free thinking people are leaving the Daily Wire. For instance, Candace Owens. We have now Brett Cooper. We have a couple other people that are kind of, Michael Knowles is kind of on the outs right now. I've heard some multiple things about that, and in particular, he is now saying, "Tell me why Syria falling is a good thing for the U.S." That's his only question, and it was funny to go on Twitter and actually it might have. Oh, I might have been mixing Walsh and Knowles up, but either way, it was one of them. And the Twitter comments were like, watch out, they're gonna get you." And I just thought that was so funny. But yeah, so the Daily Wire, definitely, you have to be Israel first, America second, and that's just the way the Daily Wire is gonna operate. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that if people just understand that it's a wing of propaganda and, view it as that. It's what it is. I mean, who cares? It's up to him. But, Candace Owens leaving. You have Jordan Peterson is a massive figurehead, goes to Daily Wire, which is kind of odd because the way I kind of view it is Brett Cooper, free thinker, pretty big deal, goes out on her own. She's going to be able to make way more money than what a Daily Wire contract could pay her. So I am interested about that and what that particularly means for Brett Cooper. So we'll see. Her YouTube channel, at least as of now, has like 93,000 subscribers, which is pretty cool. Seems like she's doing really well to kick things off. So I wish her the best of luck. I really hope that she gets a little bit more free thinking. I think she will. I think a lot of times when you're in a production studio, a lot of the times they really define what your topics are going to be. And to be fair, if I had somebody telling me what to say, it's pretty easy, right? You just, hey, we're going to go over these 5 topics, say what you think. And, they know which way to guide her so she doesn't get off the rails. So we'll see. I like to see her go off the rails. I like to see some controversial stuff. Candace Owens is one that has some controversial stuff. Actually, one thing we wanted to mention is Candace Owens actually interviewed one of the survivors of the USS Liberty. And for those of you who don't know, it was a U.S. surveillance ship. Can you look up the year of the USS Liberty, Cody? I do not want to mess that up because that would be embarrassing. But the USS Liberty was a surveillance ship in the Mediterranean in 1967. Yep. So 1967, the USS Liberty was a surveillance ship. It was picking up a lot of data in the Mediterranean, and they see Israeli surveillance, the IDF kind of coming in, they're scanning, the IDF obviously is checking who it is. They try to communicate. The IDF, the Israelis attack it and they destroy the ship, kill 34 U.S. Servicemen and sailors, and they wound another 171 U.S. sailors. This has been widely, it's been buried by the U.S. We don't want to talk about it. It's just what it is. I mean, you guys can kind of glean what you think happened from that. Why, another nation can kill our sailors and our servicemen and women and wound them. And we will not only not chastise them publicly or say anything, we will write them a check the next day for billions of dollars. It's a little odd to me. But yeah, it's pretty wild. Think about this, though. If it was any other nation, things would have got wild. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if Egypt, if there was a USS Liberty in 1967, let's just use the same exact thing. The Egyptians attack that ship. They kill 34 U.S. Servicemen. They wound 100 plus additional ones and sink our ship. I think Egypt is going to get rearranged. I think Cairo is going to have some buildings get knocked down. Like, I'm not going to lie. I think we would have lit them up. But yeah, so it is what it is. But either way, Candace Owens, if you look at her Twitter, you clearly know her position on this. She's gone off the reservation. She's a little far for me. And the main reason for that is, you can't focus on one issue and one issue only if you want to be completely, what would I say, America first, right? America first is really a wide range of issues and ideas. So I 100% think that it needs to be addressed, and what she's saying is very viable. But let's have some diversity of topic sometimes, Candace. But she's awesome. I really do like Candace Owens. She also has become very Catholic, which a lot of my friends are Adventist, and they hate the Catholics. So they're definitely like, she's the devil. But it's what it is. Sometimes you gotta get a little Catholic in your life. You gotta You got to get a little wild.
Do you think the not the hate for Catholicism, but the definitely heavy disdain stems from the
Antichrist? No, I'm kidding.
I was going to say similarities
between
Catholicism and Adventism.
in Adventism. Yeah, so Cody, both of us are SDA, some of the Adventists, if you don't know. And I have some Catholic friends, and that is part of it. I think. What expand a little bit more on what you kind of mean by that, if just so I'm not misunderstanding what you're saying there.
Per se, like how. In Adventism, Ellen White is a massive, figure.
Yeah, she's the prophet,
and
prophetess.
In somewhat in higher terms for the Catholicism, it's the Pope.
Yes.
Yeah. Whereas the Pope is regarded as a higher figure than on paper we regard Ellen White.
Yeah.
But
he's like the gateway to Christ or something weird, and he also never dies, right? Because if one dies, they elect a new one.
Yeah,
so it's like an eternal position.
Yeah, it's like
weird.
Well, they stayed as God on earth kind of deal.
They don't believe that. They don't. They claim they don't believe that. It's the same thing. They claim they don't worship Mary either, right? Even though it's kind of like, but you do say some weird stuff. Like at least admit that. Like don't act like we're dumb.
And that's the thing, and I don't want to get too deep into religion on our third episode. It'll come. But what I'm saying is it's very from the world church in terms of Adventism, we also don't claim that we hold Ellen White above the Bible or even equal to the Bible.
Yeah.
From terms of the church publicly, there are definitely a lot of things that are not said that are kind of observed as, don't question this. Don't question certain writings of Ellen White. And I think anything that contradicts the Bible at all should be questioned. I mean,
100%.
That's just the kind of the idea of that we should be sola scriptura as Christians.
Bible alone. Yep. That's what the Protestantism was, really founded.
Yeah. So I mean, it's interesting because well,
the main similarity I think you're getting at is the main concept of the Catholics believe that the Pope can have he's like a direct mediator, right? He has a direct connection to Christ, right? And their main concept is that he can really define, and he can, if he writes, let's say the Pope writes a verdict or an edict or a prophecy or anything, like that's the Bible, right? It's not the Bible, right? They're not going to claim it's the Bible, but they believe it has no error in it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the problem, is that the idea of Christianity and the idea of Protestantism, if you're not a Catholic and you're not an Orthodox, is, sola scriptura, which is scripture alone, on scripture alone. And this concept is that there is no writing there's no perfect writing except for the Bible, right? Except for scripture. And yes, there will be prophets and there will be, signs, and it says your young men will dream dreams, right? And we'll have prophecies happening all over the place. It'll be crazy. But what's interesting is that the Bible never says that there will be another book of no error, right? Or a prophet an eternal, right? So that's kind of the problem that I have with the Catholics, and this is, I think, what you're getting at is the similarities, is that the Pope is a very similar situation in which, like in Ellen White and Adventism, her books are believed, there's certain ones that have no error, right? And they are believed to be continuous until the end of time, right? And she's been dead for a long time.
Yeah, I'm not saying that she wasn't a prophet.
Yeah, 100%.
What other prophet have we taken? I'm just talking in terms of humanity.
Outside the Bible,
have we taken outside of the well? Let me get to my point. Have we taken everything that they ever wrote and it was kind of like ordained as like infallible?
Yeah.
We just haven't.
Not even there's prophets of the Bible.
That's the thing. There's many of Paul's writings that didn't make the canon of the Bible. Now then you can get into the rabbit hole of
the Maccabees,
Catholicism and
Orthodox.
Picking and choosing what we know as the Bible today. Yep. but that's a whole nother can of worms.
Another
So
episode. Let's go.
It's just interesting. I'm not stating and for our Adventist friends that, Ellen White is heresy or whatnot. It's just interesting that it's kind of a known thing, but not really publicized thing, that everything that she's ever wrote is just like,
Well,
it's like biblical almost.
And here's the thing is that, and I've heard some counter arguments where I have brought this up to someone, some friends and other people, that they're like, well, not everything, but the spirit of prophecy is, right? And that is a direct belief that there's no error in the spirit of prophecy,
Yeah.
right?
And I'm not even saying that is or isn't. My question is, who's kind of the judge of that? Who determines that is no error? And
who determines that it's eternal, right?
I guess is the metric that
to the end of time.
Does any of it contradict the Bible? Does certain parts contradict the Bible? I don't know.
And one thing to
I don't
mention,
know it like the back of my hand.
Well, it kind of, especially in the spirit of prophecy, it definitely expands upon the Bible, right? I think everyone would. I'm trying to say things that everybody would like common ground, like everybody would agree with. Like it expands
it's a
on
great, you could use it as a commentary in a sense.
Yeah.
But
what's interesting though is that I have seen, and lately, obviously there's been, a lot of people talking, but for me, just I'll kind of sum it up. I think it's just it's very interesting to see, Catholicism. For me, it's very hard. For instance, I had a friend in college, and he was hardcore Catholic. Like, bring America to Catholicism and Catholicism alone. He said he let me live, so that's cool. But
Radical.
that's a little wild, right? But the main concept though is that script. There's two camps. There's a scripture alone, and there's the people that are a little bit more like, hey, we can have something that is eternal and goes to end of time that has no error, right? And is essential for the church or let's say the remnant people. So the Catholics believe that the Catechism. They believe that a pope, a figurehead of that status is required. The Adventists, they believe that spirit of prophecy and these things are going to be going to the end of time, and what I find interesting is that, at least for me disputing them and talking against that, because one of the main arguments for me is, hey, the Bible is eternal. It's the only eternal book. It's the only book that will have no error. Sorry to break it to you, but and the Catholics obviously are like, oh my goodness, and no, I'm not cool with worshiping Mary, because it's outside the Bible. And not only that, but you have the main concept, and the main concept is that if there is a prophet, if there is a message needed today, God will send that person, right? If it needed to last more than that lifetime, it would be in the Bible, right? It would be in the eternal scriptures. Otherwise, the eternal scriptures aren't enough. It's like, and then you're getting into like some really wild stuff, which, that is kind of the problem, is that, you run into some major issues. So the main differentiator that Protestantism always had originally was the concept of sola scriptura, which is on scripture alone. And yes, there will be prophets. They will come and go, and they will try and help guide the church. And I'm not saying that any prophet is good or bad. It's what it is. But either way, I think the main concept that makes it hard to dispute and that makes Catholicism and Adventism very similar is the concept of something that is, what I would call to the end of time or eternal. However you wanna talk about that. So yeah, it's very interesting, very similar, but they hate each other. Catholics. I don't know if the Catholics really know about us, but the Adventist, bro, is the Antichrist, So
I would say, Adventism is
it's getting bigger.
24 million members worldwide.
Yeah.
So I would more people know about us than you realize.
Yeah, and it's a shrinking church, obviously in North America. Patrick Bet David knows who we are.
Yeah.
He calls us the wrong name, but
and apparently Family Guy knows who we are.
Family Guy.
They compared us to the Jews, and so
they roasted us. they roasted us hard. No, it was pretty fun. Actually, the one they defended us. They were like, you believe exactly what we believe, except they worship on Sunday or Saturday, and the dude started flipping out. It was making fun of all the other Christian religions.
Yeah.
It's kind of supporting Adventism, which I thought was funny. But
Hey, why not?
hey man, it's what it is. But yeah, yeah, just going down the list here, we kind of went off that way. But the Venezuelan, did I already go over that? Venezuelan, a national, he gets.
No, let's hit that quick. I know.
Yeah. Yeah, so the Venezuelan, they have a national. It shows up in Trump's backyard. Why are we having this issue again and again? Looks like he got way too close and luckily apprehended, though. So hopefully those attempts go less. Elon Musk crosses $400 billion in net worth. Let's go, Elon.
That's crazy.
Let's go. He's going to be the first trillionaire. Oh, I since I was younger, I always looked at Elon's stuff. He's just a really brilliant guy, and really respect him as far as an engineer. And then he just continued to. He was always a little liberal, so I was kind of like, it's cool. But he's an innovator. He's a brilliant guy, so you can't mistake that. And then he ended up kind of. I've never thought he would endorse Trump or anything like that. Yeah, and kind of became red pilled. So that's pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff. And so on our next episode, I do want to kind of get into, because it's going to be a continuation about Trump's tariffs. So we'll jump into that and what that's going to kind of look like for the economy. But I'm actually pretty excited about that. It really looks like some major things are happening, kind of more on the funny side of things. Trump then tells Trudeau that he could be the governor of the 51st state of the United States. If he wants to avoid the tariffs, man, just become a state, which we would not want, by the way. Canadians, I'm sorry, we love you guys, but you guys are off your rockers.
They have really quick internet, though.
Good internet.
Great internet.
Great
They have
internet?
good internet structure or infrastructure.
They just ban everything. Nothing's on the internet, but they have great internet. So this will be banned in Canada in T-minus 48 hours because the great and powerful Trudeau looks upon us. But yeah, no, I love making fun. Oh, dude. Anyway, yeah, the Canadians, they're a weak breed, but it's what it is. Hopefully, they get straightened out. If not, I mean, let's just how about I propose a solution to the Hamas-Israeli conflict.
Hopefully, it's not the final solution.
What's that?
That's what they called the gassing of the Jews.
Oh, did it? No!
One of the terms. I don't know if it was gassing, but it was one of Hitler's broader operations was the final solution.
It does kind of include that, but it's of white people, so it's okay.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. It's okay. No,
we won't get canceled for that.
No, yeah, white people don't matter. White lives don't matter. So what's crazy is that I just think it's funny. Why don't we just give Hamas Canada, so they get their act together?
Huh.
They can run rampant because the Canadians aren't going to defend themselves. They also banned over 400 different models of guns. By the way, more.
They probably also Hamas probably hasn't seen much greenery in their day.
That's a good point. They're like, whoa, bro, a river?
They'll just go to the forest. They probably won't last long.
They can have from the river to the sea. And they can have Trudeau as their personal slave. I don't care. Let's go.
They would have plenty of land.
As
long as we just build a huge wall.
A huge wall, a big mecca.
Of our northern border,
Yeah.
Just let them loose up there.
I would, dude, they can take it. Bro, all the Canadian women have burqas on.
They just got to keep giving us wood. They got to keep exporting timber.
They'd probably be fine with it. They need money. They need money to get their police around to keep all the women covered.
You
And
got to keep them sheets on.
keep their mouths shut and the sheets on. Dude.
Yeah.
It would be crazy, though. I mean, it's kind of funny that's what Canada's becoming anyway. But it I don't know.
They won't have to travel. They're there.
There we go. That's true.
At this rate, there's not going to be much left in Palestine. So
it's terrible. Get them on a plane.
It is bad.
Get over there, man.
It's kind of fact.
And I feel bad for the Palestinians, and at least they have a brain. The Canadians are just, at this point, they're retarded. So anyway, hopefully the Western.
Can we use that word?
Can we use it? I just did. I don't care.
Okay.
Cancel me. I said it here. I don't care. It's what it is. But anyway, I do appreciate everybody watching. It's
even if you're Canadian.
Even if you're Canadian, we love you. Just don't be so weird. And yeah.
Hey, if they watch past the 10-second mark or the 10-minute mark,
chill.
sorry, We
Very
like
chill.
them.
That's a good point.
They're
You're
chill.
right. If you got past,
If you're Canadian and you made it this far in the
if you
episode,
got past all the American flags, you're
chill.
You're cool. And if you're a Christian, if you're not Christian, click off it. Sorry. Anyway, well, sounds good, boys.
No, don't. We don't want them to click off because we want them to convert.
That's going to be another video. We don't want them to see all this stuff. This is wild. This is not the video for you. We'll have Hindu to Christian in another video.
There we go.
No. But anyway, guys, like I said, I appreciate it. We're going to jump into a lot more of the tariffs next time, which I'm pretty excited about. That's going to have some big implications on the economy. I actually have some projections of how much it's going to raise prices for American citizens, which it will, but it would be cool if we got our income tax to zero. That would be so awesome.
Praise the
Also,
Lord.
we want to cripple China. So anyway, sounds good. If you guys hit the like button, subscribe, all that kind of fun stuff. We're actually going to be releasing pretty regularly here. So yeah, and like I said, if you have any questions, leave a comment below or send us an email. So
And where can they find you, Caleb?
you can find us at, I don't remember, no, The Last Nationalist on YouTube.
The Last Nationalist podcast.
I'm sorry. The Last
YouTube.
Nationalist podcast on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all that kind of cool stuff. So we'll include in the links in the bio. So.
Yep.
All right. Sounds good, guys. Thank you. Boom. I think that's pretty good.